Hi and welcome. Welcome back to another Onkruid video. Welcome to the start of a little series, or a bit more than a little series, I guess, on a book by one of my favorite authors, one of my favorite therapists that I look up to immensely, Irvin Yalom. And the book is called The Gift of Therapy, or in Dutch, Therapie als Geschenk. A beautiful book written for clients, therapists, written for whoever is interested. But what intrigued me about this most is the idea that I bought this before I even knew that I was gonna have to read out of it from my therapy education. So it already inspired me to buy it before I realized that it was actual reading that I had to do. So that means that it made quite an impression of me, quite an impact on me. What's the plan for my series on this book? The plan is that I want to deep dive into its contents, in a sense that I want to really explore what this book has to offer, what Yalom has to say, and the advice he has to give me as a clinical psychologist and a therapist in training. So I want to be really familiar with the contents of this book at the end of the series. I want to know the ins and outs of it and have a clear overview, a bit of a compendium, if you will, for myself, but I want to share that with you guys then as well. I want to have it in both a text version, which is something I'm doing just off camera, writing it down, but also in this video format, so that if I don't like reading, if I feel like I don't want to go through this book again, I can just maybe watch my own series. There is 85 tips in this book for therapists. I'm gonna make at least 85 videos on this. I'm gonna make a video for every tip. They're gonna be short, concise, to the point. They're just gonna be about what the tip is about and not too much dilly-dallying or saying other stuff that is unrelated to the topic. Every 10 tips, I will make a little recap video of the past 10 and give my thoughts on whatever has crossed our paths by then. The intro will be included in this video right now. It's what we're doing, so this one is gonna be a bit longer. And the outro is gonna consist of some thoughts about the final section of this book, which is both a conversation with the author and a little talk with him about this book and about his thoughts after bringing it out. So a bit of an edit by the author, if you will, afterwards, and we will try to formulate that into one video as well to end off the series for myself. Too many books in this room, I'll show you, like the ones up there. They are not read, and that entire bookcase, they contain too many books that have not been read before, and this really gives me an excuse to invest the time into reading this book, because I'm investing in multiple passions at once. I'm being a better therapist or becoming a better therapist, I'm focusing on this YouTube grind, and I am also just reading, which is something I love to do. Now, what does this book have to offer? It offers some of the insights gained by Irvin Yalom, one of the most respected therapists in the field, especially by me, and especially in the existential group therapy client-centered field. It offers insights that he gathered throughout his more than 30 years spanning career of being a therapist and a psychiatrist. I greatly adhere to his principles. I adhere to what he writes in other books and texts. I really find him an inspiring author and an inspiring therapist, and he has helped me both understand the craziness of my job a bit better, and also just made me a better therapist by introducing me to new trains of thoughts, new insights, new techniques, and all of that good shit. This book is not just like a guide, it's not just course material, it's really an in-depth exploration of what a therapeutic relationship can be, what it can do to humans, not to a human, because not only the client changes, the therapist changes as well. It's kind of an exploration of the empathic, authentic, unconditionally, positively regarding relationship that two people step into together, and what kinds of changes that can lead to in both of their worlds. I've read a couple of his tips that should inspire practitioners in their practice already for one of my classes, but now it's time to really power through it together with you. In his own introduction of the book, he talks a little bit about certain topics that are near and dear to his heart, and about his motivations for actually writing the work. And one of those motivations is the crisis that he thinks the US healthcare system is in, especially also the system for mental health care. He's talking about reimbursements and about how the economy and motivations in that front or in that camp are influencing the way psychotherapy is given out to people. He's talking about the crisis of focusing on short-term therapies. Really, everything has to be nice and clean and quickly finished. He's talking about how therapy educations are on the down low, are a bit diminishing. They are not as qualitative as they used to be, because people also need to learn fast, study fast, get into the work field fast. And he kind of advocates for a change of direction from an investment both from the clients and the practitioner's side into long-term therapy again, in long therapeutic relationships that really span possibly even years and can have a profound impact on human beings. The field of psychiatry, for example, that he is in, Yalom talks about, they are just studying pharmacology, they are just studying about which medication to give their patients instead of really focusing on the therapeutic relationship. And that's understandable, it's logical, because big companies, big pharma and reimbursement companies like health insurance companies, they want to only give reimbursements to things like medication and stuff because that is proven to work and that is a short-term fix. But we're losing the beautiful field of psychotherapy and its potential groundbreaking effects. Yalom works mainly with group therapy on one hand, or worked mainly with group therapy on one hand, and existential therapy on the other hand. Group therapy is all about interpersonal therapy. It's all about relationships between group members, which are kind of like a mirror image of the relationships the people also have in their life outside the group probably. And he really focuses on that as a motor for therapeutic change. Existential therapy is more in a one-on-one context, or solely in a one-on-one context, and it's mainly focused on how a person kind of lives with the existential givens, how they measure up to the existential givens, how they give them a place in their life. The existential givens are these big universal themes that kind of make up the human condition that we can't escape from even if we try, that underlie all of human existence. They are death, isolation, meaning, and freedom. And death also implies life, of course. Isolation also implies connectedness. Freedom also implies choice, and meaning also implies meaninglessness. They're all like spectrums. They're all kind of dynamic givens, you know? People move in those domains. Existential therapy, according to Yalom, is also very closely related to the dynamic therapy that Freud was talking about way back when, in a sense that also here in existential therapy, unconscious processes, things happening below the surface and internal conflicts in those domains, like for example between death and life, between isolation and connectedness, and therefore autonomy and connectedness, they are happening below the surface, but they have their impact visible above the surface. They impact human behavior, they impact how we live, they impact how we speak to others and how we build up relationships in our life. Yalom then quickly also talks about how two elements in therapy are important, both the content, which is way more classically believed to be important, like the theories and the specific methods and the psychoeducation that you give your clients, the insights you give them, but also the process of therapy, which is focused way more on like the relationship and how that can imply or induce change. An effective therapist, according to Yalom, can force their clients into conversations about the content, into really diving into those existential themes and talking about them. No, an effective therapist also uses the process and lets the content just arise and die down again. Yalom is a bit more of an advocate for the process being the most important part. He is really focused on that interpersonal part of therapy and about the relationship and its possibility to change. Originally, he had 200 tips, but for this book, he skimmed it down to 85. The disclaimer Yalom really tries to convey before you delve into this book with me is that it is a personal work. It is about his experience in the psychotherapy world. It is about his ideas, his insights, his ponderings. It doesn't have to work for everyone, and it's very much possible that there will be tips in those 85 tips that you stumble upon and you think, this is bullshit, this is never gonna work for me, I don't want to use this, and he tells us that it's completely fine. Take from it what you can, but don't adhere to it like it's some kind of holy grail that'll make you the best therapist. Which is maybe a little bit what I do with Yalom, but don't tell anybody. I'm a bit idealizing, I'm a bit putting him on a pedestal maybe, but that's a discussion for another video. It's exactly what I'm gonna do with this series. I'm gonna go through the book in depth in order so that I can really make the decision, make the choice about what I want to keep, what I want to use, what I want to remember, or what I want to lay by the wayside a little bit and forget. That's exactly what I'm doing here, and I hope you can tag along with it and indulge in the same processes. Processi? That would sound a lot worse. Any questions, any remarks, any input, any tips to make these videos more enticing? Shoot. Everything is welcome, but other than that, sit back and enjoy the ride. From now on, this is really how all the videos are gonna be, or most of them are gonna be, 85 of them are gonna be. We're just gonna dive straight into that first tip and be concise, talk about it for a second, give a little bit of my own experience and my own ponderings on it, but I'm really going to try and keep this nice and short and clean and sharp. Tip 1, take away the obstacles for growth. If we take away a person's obstacles for growth, their internal tendency to grow, to become more authentic, to self-actualize, to become the best version of themselves, given the context they are in at that point in time, will arise. We don't have to induce the change. We don't have to make sure that we look for ways to change, because the client will do that on his own as soon as his barriers, his blockades, the things blocking him from eliciting that growth, from really being able to like explore the world and grow in a sense that he internally feels motivated to, as soon as those barriers are gone, they will just do that for themselves and you don't have to intervene that much anymore. You don't need to inspire them or give them crazy goals. They have aspirations in them already. They are motivated to do something with their life. He gives the example in the book of meeting a widow, as one of his clients of course, meeting a widow that didn't want to love again. She wanted to let the love of another man, let that part of her life just not exist anymore, because it would feel like a great betrayal towards her past husband. Beautiful stuff, very touching, very endearing, but also probably gut-wrenchingly difficult to deal with. And Yalom focused in his therapeutic trajectory with this woman, in his sessions, he focused on taking away that obstacle, not on helping her go on dates, on helping her find new love, on helping her remarry. That is kind of the tendency that she would already have inside of her and that she would bring to the world if the obstacle of that feeling of betrayal, that very negative connotation towards falling in love again, would disappear. And that's something Yalom then helped to. I myself related this to one of the clients I saw, a younger student. I saw him at the end of his high school. He is now in university, an athlete, track runner on a high level. He really has some talent in him and he can develop that to great extents. He can probably become a great track runner, probably even beat some records. We have a physical therapist in our practice as well that is seeing him, and she's saying the same thing, like this guy has it in him to become one of the greats. But why he came to me was this unlogical, not supported by facts or anything, irrational but very hard fear of becoming sick, becoming ill, having injuries, of something being wrong with his body and him not noticing it in time, it developing and it really having a very negative impact on his life. We found a way to diminish these anxious thoughts. We used diffusion techniques, mainly from the acceptance and commitment therapy point of view, to create more distance between that part of him that is giving him these doom scenarios, that is really telling him like, okay, this signal in your body right here, you're having a heart attack, you need to slow down right now. We try to get rid of that hyperfixation on the body without, of course, getting rid of his relationship with his bodily feelings, because they are very, very important sources of information to listen to. But we got rid of the roadblock. We got rid of the thing that was really inhibiting him from fully committing to his passion. And after that, what do you know? It just worked out. I didn't have to make training schedules for him. I didn't have to tell him, okay, you need to run 3 times a day. No, that capacity to develop that talent, that actualization tendency inside him to become the best runner he can was there. It was still there. It was buried for a while, but we took away the ground and it erupted again on its own, you know? Just take away the barriers. That's enough. All right, video 1 out of almost 100 finished. I hope you are as excited for this journey as I am. Of course, the tips are a bit like straight to the point and a little bit simple, but Yalom wanted to make it concise as well. Otherwise, this would have been such a book. It's not always going to be fairy tales and butterflies in your therapy sessions, right? This is not always going to work, but it's a very valuable tip to take into account. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.